All right, so the next step of the writing process, or the first step, I guess you could consider this, will be your introduction. So, we are going to talk about that for a few minutes, talk about what your introduction needs to have, and then you will be off to start. So, we're going to go back into Google Classroom, into the informational essay. Okay, so we're going to go into our essay and we are going to open it up. And we're going to look through all of these handy dandy links that we went over last time. And we're going to go back into our outline. Okay. And we are going to use this, remember, like I said, for every single step. You always want to make sure that you come back to this outline because this has all the information that you need. So just a quick refresher for your formatting. You're going to end up, by the time we finish, 4 paragraphs, double spaced. You're going to have your intro, which you are going to start today. You will have 2 body paragraphs and a conclusion, which we are not going to be starting today. And then all of your fonts, your citations, all of that kind of stuff. Your grammar check, we talked about all of that. Your sources, you already have those now. So we are going to move on to the introduction. So for your introduction, like I said before, the first thing that you're going to start with is your hook. That's the very beginning of your introduction. So like I said before, if you click on this resource, this hyperlink, it's going to bring you to this website. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing because it's a lot, but this is just a resource for you. Especially for those of you that struggle with writing. Starting an essay can sometimes be the hardest part. And this resource is really, really helpful because it talks about how to write a hook. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So, in order to write a good hook, you have to obviously have a clear vision of what kind of work you're writing. Okay. And you know that you are writing an informative. Because that makes all the difference. You're informing us. That would be different than if you were writing an argumentative essay or a narrative essay or something like that. So once you finish all of that, you can look down here. There are some examples for you that you can look at. Different ways they used quotes. Some people used statistics. You can use a story that kind of relates. If you're writing a paper, an informative paper about autism, then maybe you would have, you could open up with a story that you found in your research about a child who has autism that really stuck out to you. Or if you're writing a story about, or if you're writing your paper about the Black Lives Matter movement, you could, put a story there. Things like that. So there are lots and lots of different ways with numbers and statistics. That's a really popular one, especially for informative and argumentative. A lot of people like to start with that. So you can just kind of scroll through this and see if there are any that are interesting to you that you could use. So that's the first part. You're going to make sure that you start your introduction with a hook. Okay. Your hook is, like I said before, 1 to 2 sentences. The background information, this is the big part. Okay. You are going to want to make sure, that your background information has enough information. You want to make sure that there is information, in there that informs your reader about what your topic is. This is a great place for you to put your first citation. And we will talk about in-text citations in another video. But you want to make sure that you start thinking about what quotes or what pieces of evidence that you're going to be using from your research that you can use in this background information. And the background information is just you explaining your topic to the reader as if they have never heard of it in their life. Okay, that's just your basic, like, this is what the topic is, A, B, C, D. This is the basic information that obviously when you get into the paper itself, you're going to be going into much more detail. You don't want to go into too much detail in your introduction because then that doesn't leave you a lot to talk about in your body paragraphs. So it's kind of like the teaser, okay? And then at the end, you are going to have your thesis statement. This hyperlink brings you to the video that I also emailed to you. I've sent it out a couple different times, but if you want to go back and look at that lesson, then it's right there for you. But the thing to remember about your thesis statement is that it is one statement. It is very simple and to the point. A lot of people like to get really wordy with their thesis statements, and it ends up being like 3 or 4 sentences. That's too much. Okay, the thesis statement needs to be very basic, especially for an informative essay. Your argumentative thesis statement will be a little bit more sophisticated than that, but for your informative, it's going to be real basic. Okay, just very basic. So that is how and what is expected for your introduction. So as you start to type your introduction into your document, you do not need to turn it in because once it's attached to the assignment, I can see what you are doing real time. So I'll be able to go in there, leave feedback for you as you're working. Comments and suggestions and things like that. So just be mindful of that and make sure that you're checking back from time to time to see if you are getting feedback from me as you're writing. So the introduction is all you're focusing on right now, nothing else. And that will be checked off later this week. So if you have any questions, let me know. Happy writing.